Hey guys, thanks for coming here. I'm creating a video today on the most effective approach to the GMAT, which is a topic by topic approach. In this video, I'm going to explain everything about it and the psychology of why it works, and really why every other approach has a lot of downfalls in comparison to this particular approach. But the first thing I just want to say is thank you very much for all the subscribers and whatnot. I know I've been absent for pretty much a year, and I'll be very honest with you guys. I have been crazily busy, and to be honest, I was a bit embarrassed. And that was because that crazy high that I was on coming into the year with that score and whatnot, I haven't actually converted into a fairy tale ending just yet. With COVID and everything that hit, I put the applications on pause. I threw in whatever I could at the beginning of the year, and now I'm sort of going through that application phase again at the worst possible time ever. But look, we're all here now, and I'm going to be recording this all by Zoom, okay? I'm currently in a semi-rural area in Sydney, so there may be a lot of noises and whatnot in the back, and I don't have the best equipment. So please bear with me on this. So look, before I get into this, the first thing I'll say is a lot of people have come to me, and I really appreciate that. Thousands of people have watched the videos, and well over, I don't know, hundreds of people have contacted me, and that's great. In the beginning, I was tutoring a number of people for free and whatnot, but then I started to have to say, okay, look, I can't take any more people on. It's going to be, a nominal fee or whatever it might be if you want to, get involved. And that was really just to cull the amount of time it was taking out. It got to the point where weekends, every weekend, literally back to back, during the lockdown that we had here, was all work. And I think I went for about 3 months without taking a break. And I was happy to do that because I understand how difficult this GMAT is. Okay, so I'm going to jump into my iPad now, and I'm going to explain everything you need to know about this approach. Alright guys, so this is all going to be free balling. Now let me give you a timeline, okay? This is the timeline that all of you guys need to follow. The reason why I'm painting this picture is because this is what will frame you in understanding where this topic by topic approach comes in, okay? This is the GMAT timeline. So in the beginning, everyone should really take a diagnostic test. This is effectively recapping the second video I made. You take a diagnostic test and you see where you land, right? Is it sub 600? Is it 600? I mean, is it 700? I mean, if it is, then just go sit the test, to be honest. And it doesn't matter if it's a third-party test or the official. I mean, if it's a third-party test, then arguably you'll find that the test scores might be probably slightly lower than what you would get on an official GMAT test. But, that's quite debatable because at the lower end of the scores, you'll see greater, I think, less fluctuations. I think it really depends. So you take that test here, right? Then you do a bit of planning. So, all right, where have I gotten to? Which one of these have I gotten onto? If it's sub 600, you start to say, okay, sub 600, what do I need? I need probably at least 6 months. Now, the assumptions here that you're a blank canvas. You've never touched a GMAT before. Alright, so I'm going to draw this timeline out for you as if you've never touched the GMAT before. So you take your diagnostic here, do your planning here, but then you allow your runway. I'll just fill this one in. So you need about, 4 to 6 months here. I mean, I would just go sit it straight away if you get this score. But, I mean, it's crazy how competitive things are now, guys. So if you want to get like 720, 730, 750, whatever it might be, like everyone can get a 700 plus score. Then perhaps delay yourself a couple of months if you get a 700 diagnostic. Okay. Now commences the learning phase. This is where these timelines come in. I'll explain the learning phase on the next page in greater detail, but the next phase is review / refinement plus test taking. I know I explained this phase, the learning phase, in a lot of detail, but in all honesty, that is because it warrants the most amount of explaining. Now, let's come in and look at this. I'll get rid of all this crap and just tell you straight away. You don't just say, okay, I'm in the learning phase, crop open a book and start to get going, all right? A topic by topic approach is a technique and it fits in here. You effectively have two objectives when you take a topic by topic approach. And when I say topic by topic, is literally one topic at a time within each subsection. So I also talked about other techniques before with, in other videos you might have seen. A lot of those techniques, such as the streaks method. Sorry, I'm jumping around here, but it's better I explain the topic by topic approach on another page. Various reviews or flashcards, a bit of exposure therapy, and I can explain that later. The Leitner system or Feynman techniques. These are all great review and refinement techniques, okay? But this is where, 80 to 90% of your learning and bulk of your GMAT prep will take place. Now, I was going to explain it here, but it's better I do it on a new page. So let me do that. Okay, just keep in mind, we are in learning phase. So in the learning phase, so after you've taken your diagnostic, the learning phase, you have these subsections in the test, okay? You have quant, verbal. Sorry, you have two sections, quant and verbal. Then you have subsections, data sufficiency, DS, problem solving. Then you've got sentence correction, critical reasoning, reading comp. Now, for quant, you have all these topics that effectively overlay either subsection. In my opinion, at least in the learning phase, you don't need to break your learning down into these two categories. You have to break it down just by topic. So in quant, so you'd have number properties. There are at least 20 topics. I'm not going to write them out, but there are about 20 topics. If you want the comprehensive list of all topics in the test, I will link the GMATClub Search Function. That has everything. It's literally got everything, okay? Down to, say, geometry and whatnot. Now, here you've got 8 different topics. I won't write them out, but everything from subject-verb agreement through to parallelism and comparisons. It's another topic. Same with this, strengthen. Each of these is a different topic. Strengthen, I call these subsections, and these are the topics in those subsections, okay? Now for RC is different, okay? There are categories in RC, so you have business, science, humanitarian, social science, which I hated, but I wouldn't break it down into that. And the reason for not breaking it down into those different categories I just mentioned is it doesn't vary your approach. It doesn't vary how you're going to tackle each at all. Like, it's the same approach. Some people might just be weaker at certain topics. For example, I was initially weaker at social science topics, topics on like feminist movements and, very, very deep American history that I didn't really appreciate at first. And that was because I hadn't really read any of that. I've got a science and chemistry background in high school and in the university and whatnot, and business, obviously. So I've never really read that content. Now, the way you approach RC, I'll explain later on, but you effectively just have to treat the difficulties as topics, okay? Easy, medium, and hard, or sub 600, 600, 700. All right, so that's how the topics are broken up. How do you take a topic by topic approach? Well, if we go back here and let's just use, I like SC a lot. So let's use SV agreement. Let's just say, look, firstly, I'll explain ground rules. You only do one topic from one subsection at a time. Do not move on to the next topic until you've finished everything that's required in that topic for that given subsection. What does this mean? It means I can be working on both subject-verb agreement and strengthen the argument because they're from different subsections. They're different topics from different subsections. But I can't be working on parallelism and subject-verb agreement at the same time because they overlay each other and because your brain needs to figure out how to do one topic first, get to a certain level of proficiency, then move on. Particularly in when you're refining things, you'll notice that you're going to start to take on tougher problems, and the 700 level problems are a multitude of topics in one question, but they test finite scopes. I'm going to explain this, how to do it, and then I'm going to tell you why it's important and why a lot of you are currently shooting yourself in the foot. How does it work? So you said SV agreement. You effectively have two objectives, and I talked about this in another video, and they are in this order. Learn content, then you demonstrate proficiency in that content. That's all it is. And fundamentally, this is how you learn anything properly. Like if you want to edge your way to mastery, this is how you do it. So you learn the content, you could be using anything. I always praise Target Test Prep, and that's because I fundamentally believe they've got the richest, best content. But, whatever you've used, like let's just say you've got a book, Power Scores book for CR. You go in, you read that material, you make notes. This is how you learn content. You make notes, so you actively engage with the content. Let me refine this. Make outline style notes. I initially wrote all my notes out. I actually think there are some benefits to do that. Like when you're writing notes, you think about them, therefore can lead to greater retention. That can exponentially blow out your prep time. So if you want, I highly recommend, as much as possible, making flashcard style notes. Just get open a Google Sheet, name one column front, the other one back, put in a question. Okay, what is the formula for the area of a square, for example? Then on the back, in that second column, put in the answer. Because down the track, when we get to the review phase, you can literally just lift and shift that content and convert it into a flashcard if you find that you're weaker at that particular topic, okay? So it's very hard to do that when you've wrote all your notes down. I've done both, and I was writing, and I think writing was one of the early downfalls of my prep because it blew out my time stupidly, okay? So you learn the content, so you make outline style notes as you read. If you're using Target Test Prep, there will be questions throughout each chapter, but I think most providers will have this. Solve some questions that are incidental, okay? Don't go out and purposely solve everything. Okay, let's just say you've gotten to the end of a chapter. You've finished strengthen the argument or subject-verb agreement here. Apologies for jumping around. We're using subject-verb agreement. You finished going through the topic and subject-verb agreement, okay? And you said, all right, now, I'm going to do what Dan says and demonstrate proficiency. How do I do that? Well, you start here. You have to demonstrate proficiency in the sub 600/easy section. You do not pass go until you do that. Now, initially, I recommended the strict approach, but I don't recommend that during the learning phase anymore because I found that it was just taking too much time. It is very thorough, but I recommend it while you're in the review phase, okay? It's a review technique to focus on weaker topics. That's another topic for another video. Now, how do you demonstrate proficiency? Well, you have to achieve certain accuracies in questions. And what I mean by that is, I would purposely go out and solve about 10 to 12 questions and keep solving sets of around 10 questions until you can get about 80% of them correct. You may not get it the first go, so you have to review each time you do a bunch of questions. So you need to look at what you did right, what you did wrong, and make flashcards, review the concepts, and that'll strengthen your understanding of that content. Once you achieve the 80%, and only once you've achieved it, you then move on to the 600 level or medium, and you aim for about 75%. Let's say 80 to 90% on easy, 75 on medium, and then hard, say, 10 or so, 60 to 65% correct, okay, in that set of 10. If your overall average across all your questions is 60% or whatever it is, that's fine. But you need a big sample size. You can't just go off and do one bunch of questions, okay? You need a fairly big sample size. I'd say you probably need about 40 to 50 questions in the easy, 30 to 40 in the medium, and probably 20 to 30 in the hard to get a reasonable sense of whether you can actually go off outside of this learning area and tackle them the same way. Now, I keep hammering on about target test prep because it effectively does all this for you. It gives you the content and then gives you a shitload of questions, and you have to achieve certain accuracies. That's effectively how you're going to demonstrate proficiency. All right, let's go back, have a look here, and see that we can effectively add those two objectives here. Now, once you've done that for all 20 or so topics, you're good to go. You can start taking tests, but it's not going to be easy. This doesn't happen in a couple of weeks. As much as you may find yourself giving into all those. I did the GMAT in 2 weeks. I got a 780. That sort of gimmicky marketing bullcrap. If you're one of those people who believes in that, then you're going to have a hard time performing the GMAT. I'll say this, okay? For the most part, most people don't start off at 700s. Most people don't even start off at 600, 650s. Like, many people will like that. Majority of people of test takers don't get score anywhere near that. The average test score in the whole world over a sample size of approximately 700,000 people is around 550. So why would you start off much higher than that? It doesn't make sense. Some people do, but look, I'll take a step back, guys. I need to explain this right now because there's a big misconception out there. Let's just say, why do I start at a certain score? So as I was saying, do not give into the crappy, take a course and you get a 700 plus in 2 weeks. That is a load of shit, okay? And it's one of the biggest issues that burns through people's precious time. The reason why people give into that shit is because people in the GMAT world, I hate to say it, but companies prey on people who are psychologically susceptible. Those companies are literally the fat loss pill of GMAT. So if I'm, 200 kilos, I'm mentally depressed, like all I want to do is get slim, I go on a diet and I hear about, oh, there's a magic pill that'll make me lose 100 kilos in 2 weeks. I'm going to want to take it because I'm so, mentally down. That's effectively what this is. And I hate seeing those companies do it. And keep in mind, I've tried pretty much every company out there and their materials. So what I recommend is what I firmly believe in. Why do some people start at 700s or 600s? Those people who start at 700s are rare, okay? The reason they start at 700s is because of some sort of prevailing circumstance or habit or skill set that they had prior to doing this test. People were great at the SAT, for example, read a damn book every day of their life since they were a kid. Like people who read a lot, and I mean habitual readers. So I read quite a bit, but nothing compared to what some people had read prior to actually starting the GMAT. If you were one of these people who read a book, I don't know, even one book a month from the time you were a kid, just think about that compounded over the years. These guys are going to kill you when it comes to reading comp and going to kill you when it comes to sentence correction because they understand words and everything. So they're obviously going to start a lot higher. Now, there are other circumstances. People are great at critical reasoning. People do undergrads in mathematics. Imagine if I were to say, oh, yeah, like I got a 700 in 2 weeks. Here's how I did it. And then I forget to tell you that, I've got an advanced mathematics undergrad degree. My credibility goes out the window. Imagine that. My undergrad was not mathematics. It was actually accounting. I did 2 degrees of accounting and science in technology or science in IT. But there's a lot of that going around. Like I see so many debriefs where people just dump all this advice and psychologically susceptible student comes along and says, oh, you know what, I'll take this person's advice. They got it in 2 weeks. Well, good news for you. That is not what you should be doing. And you should take that person's advice with a grain of salt because you don't know what their underlying or prevailing circumstances were. And they may not have the emotional intelligence or awareness to actually inform you. That's another thing, right? So I just want to take a step back. I'll say this, I started at 4:30, right? On a Manhattan test. People who start low, such as myself, start low for a number of reasons, and that low score may be misrepresentative. I, for example, realized that, I didn't even finish the verbal section. So I think there were about 3 or 4 questions that I didn't even finish, maybe even more. And that kills your score. Not finishing is actually worse than answering a question wrong. Okay, I'll explain how that GMAT algorithm works in another video, but just keep in mind, guys, this test is not an assessment of your IQ. And by the way, IQ tests can be trained for. Okay, this test is really an assessment of your knowledge and demonstration of your proficiency at a point in time on topics that are assessed in the GMAT. That's all it is. Now, look, with that said, let's get back to the main point of this video. Now, this is how you take a topic by topic approach. I won't go in and obviously solve questions for you, but you do this for each topic, right? Let's just say you get through all this. That's 1 and 2, done. Go through, bam, bam. You've done subject verb agreement. You move on to the next topic. It could be parallelism. Now, you could be simultaneously solving topics from SC and CRBS. In fact, I recommend that you do solve them simultaneously. In fact, I recommend that you have this following cadence or flow to keep you accountable. So for sentence correction, I recommend, and look, this will vary based on your pace of learning and your life commitments, but I think working backwards works tremendously for people in the GMAT, because if you set an objective, then that objective will dictate how much time you need to study. Whereas if you say, oh yeah, I'm going to study 4 hours a day, you might not achieve anything in that time. Setting the objective is always going to be the most effective approach to getting through the full learning phase. So let's just say 1 to 1.5 topics per week. And when I say topics, I mean you've completed objectives 1 and 2 that I outlined. CR is, let's say, 1 topic. Guys, CR, in my opinion, is slightly harder than anything else in verbal to improve, because CR often requires you to do a lot of practice to really learn the logic, okay? Whereas the other ones can be practiced, but they can be picked up relatively quicker. So 1 topic. RC, I think you need to practice it daily, okay? And if you're not practicing it daily, you'll find that RC will dip relatively quickly. And I recommend you also read, so daily or reading, okay? Some great books that I recommend. You may or may not like this suggestion. Everyone knows that I've recommended Thinking Fast and Slow, and that's a great book. Requires you to actually think a lot. It can be a bit dull at times, but does activate your type 2 thinking. Another book I'd actually recommend if you want to perhaps enjoy your reading is Frankenstein, the 1818 text. Knocked it off in a day. It's a great book. I also recommend Ben Horowitz's The Hard Thing About Hard Things. That's a great book. If you're into business especially. And what else is it? Just read daily. Okay, that's for verbal. Now for quant, I recommend 1 to 2 topics per week, and some topics, this is the same for all these 3 as well. Some topics will take a whole week, okay? Now my assumptions here are that you are working at least part-time, full-time, but that you are consistently studying. That is a key assumption, okay? Like, do not drop the ball. Consistency is key here. The GMAT is really like your stepping on stage to do a bodybuilding comp. It really is, because you don't step on stage straight away, right? It's a point-in-time assessment. You have to build up and then get ready, diet down, and consistency and meticulous planning and everything is key. All right. Some topics will take a whole week, such as number properties, geometry. Don't get stressed out if it takes longer than any of these time frames that I've mentioned, okay? These are all per week, okay? Per week. If you're taking longer than what I've recommended here, as long as you're consistent, it's okay. If you're not consistent, then you need to stop slacking off and get back into it, but just make sure you're consistent. Now, I go and explain why this approach works. That's really important. Well, let's have a look at how you guys are currently learning, right? Let's just say you're trying to build your 700 plus score house. A lot of people, they go in and they say, oh yeah, gonna get the OG book, gonna learn all the questions in there. And what they find is they start building a house like this. That's parallelism topic. And look, these are the difficulties. So let's just say sub 600, 600, and then 700. Parallelism, subject verb agreement. Let's just say this is geometry. So they pick up the OG book, they're like, oh, they do the Manhattan books, and they think that the few questions that are given in those are going to be sufficient. They also think, oh yeah, the OG, like this is where it's at, this is the official questions, I'm going to do everything in here, should be fine after that. Completely false. What happens is, look, I'll explain what the OG is. The official guide is a compilation of retired GMAT questions. Firstly, don't waste your money on those books. They're all going to be available on GMATClub. You might as well get used to looking at a computer screen. Secondly, why do you think you're going to be able to learn from doing past questions that literally just test you on specific aspects of the content. You might get through all OGs twice and you'll know how to solve those particular questions. And you might do okay, you might get in the 600s. But what happens if they throw you a new question that assesses a different aspect of that content? Well, because you haven't demonstrated proficiency in a particular topic, this will sort of happen. As you get into the more difficult questions, you will be assessed on fewer aspects, like less scope of one topic, and then more topics will be introduced, especially in the 700 level questions. So you could be assessed on 2 topics here. And what's going to happen is all these cracks are going to form because you've only learned how to solve OG questions and you don't know how to solve all aspects of the content, right? You don't know the content. You haven't learned it properly. So especially when you get into the 700 level questions, everything is just going to fall through the cracks. So you will never reach the 700 goal. You might get some of them right, but you're effectively learning how to solve the questions. Now, people probably want to argue with what I said because they might say, oh yeah, I did the OG and it worked well for me. All right, that could be coincidental. It could be that you learned the OG only and found that that test you did to get whatever score you got was only assessing you on what was in the OG. You might have already had a very firm understanding of it. You could have been scoring, in between here. You could have been up here already, and it might be okay. But this topic by topic approach will lead you to actually build a proper house. So what happens if you learn topic by topic? Well, you don't have any gaps. You've learned it properly. Okay, so everything falls down properly. And then, you build on everything to get your 700 plus score. Now, a lot of people who have worked with me have shown that I explain this concept firstly because it's extremely relevant to the GMAT. This just extrapolate over 30 topics in total of the GMAT. Right, that's why it's very important to go topic by topic. It's very thorough, but it's the only proven method that will improve your score. Guaranteed. Apologies for this background noise. Now, I need to explain another thing really quickly that I often tell people if they want to, meet and discuss this. I need to explain the forgetfulness curve. Now, when you first learn a bit of content, okay, your retention is 100%, not detention, retention. And over this is time. First learn a bit of content, your retention is 100%. Within the first day, if you don't touch that content again at all, 2 days, 3+ days. In the first day, it's going to look like this, okay? Your retention goes to shit. Potentially a bit longer, it could be 2 days, it really depends, I don't know. Let's just say I read an article here and I don't know anything the next day. But you don't lose your knowledge of it, you have awareness of it. You have pretty crappy awareness of it, 10%. Your knowledge baselines. When you want to master something or actually fundamentally learn it and convert it, this is a really poor attempt at drawing the brain, but convert short-term memory into long-term memory. This is the front, this is the back. Right now, it's just coming in the front and goes out. But you have a little bit of retention. Some of it goes through. You have to review stuff or learn stuff in a spaced manner. And this is where the concept of spaced repetition comes in. So let's just say the second day or the third day or whatever it might be, I come in and I solve questions. I have a trigger event where I go, bam, solve questions. It brings this forgetfulness curve up. Jesse, if you're watching, appreciate you explaining this before. Now, you bring this curve up, your baseline improves. each trigger event effectively brings the curve up, you know, until your baseline retention improves dramatically and you've effectively converted a lot of it to long-term memory or a skill set. Those cadences I gave out, so these cadences that I gave out here, consider that. If you're solving a topic over a week's time, you're going to be making that conversion happen and you're going to be reducing this. If you're already way past the learning phase and you're now in this phase here, review, refinement, you have to be doing spaced repetitions because whether you like it or not, everyone's brain works the same, but things do dull off. And if you're weaker at a given topic, it's likely because the baseline is way down here. I need to explain these concepts because a lot of people get confused over what a topic by topic approach means. Now, in other videos, I'm going to explain where refinement comes in, but I'll quickly say that after you've gone through all these topics, you need to take a test, diagnostic test. And you need to start taking tests on about a week to 2 week cycle after you've achieved certain objectives in your review phase. The thing that you need to know is test taking is a skill set in itself. There's many things that you need to become skilled at: when to dump questions, when to move on, how to control your anxiety, how to control how you physiologically respond to certain situations or certain stimulus that you're presented. Explain all that in another video. Thanks for watching. And look, guys, I'll say this as well. I don't get paid for any of this. I do because I believe so firmly in Target Test Prep's product. They've reached out to me to have an affiliation with them now. Do not let that skew how I perceive their product, because I was working with them and I firmly believed in that product well before I became an affiliate. Yeah, there's nothing stopping me from becoming an affiliate of other companies. I just prefer to only be and represent what I firmly believe is a great product. All right, thank you very much. If you want to support me, click the link below. But otherwise, have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.